We are live. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Happy to be here.
Good morning.
Tony, I'm the general manager of Fred Bean's Kia in Langhorne. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman, Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now, and anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry has been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry, and he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out the textbook, but Larry has a real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Life is about connection, having a support system to lean on, and roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Good morning and welcome. And I was trying to come up with some books, but since Larry's one of our sponsors, I thought I'd come up with his book, which is Enter More on Demons. If you're looking for a book that's a light read, it's definitely a really, really interesting book. So that's a book from Larry. This is our disclaimer. We're not responsible for anything that our guests say on the show. That's because we can't control that. So if you have questions, you can definitely read the disclaimer right on our website. So I thought it would be interesting to have a show that was completely different from last week's show, which was about analytics and customers. And I wanted to call it the WTF Automotive Show. So that's what we're doing today. So let's get into it. Also, there's going to be on Wednesday, engage shoppers on video call for automotive webinar. You can check out the details in the email. All righty. So let me just stop this. Stop share. Here we go. So we're going to start by order of who appeared first. I believe that was Bill. So Bill, tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are, and then answer the first question, which is why you still love the auto industry and what sparked your love of it all.
Well, fantastic. Thanks so much, Ian. Pleasure to be here. It's actually an honor. Followed the show for a long time, so it's really great you're reaching out. I really appreciate it. I would say that I help struggling and novice salespeople achieve their maximum potential. That's what I do, and have done this with 8 different manufacturers across North America. I have been an automobile dealer, so that's what earned me the stripes with a Chrysler franchise at an early stage in life, but I've had some magnificent clients, as all of us in this room have worked for indirectly or directly. And let me get to the question, because that's the really fun part. I knew at an early age, before it ever really was a thing, I wanted to be an automobile dealer. There was a mentor, there was an influence. One of my dad's best friends was a Pontiac Buick Cadillac dealer, so that takes us back a little bit. Went to automobile school, so Northwood University in Midland, Michigan. And again, going from high school to car school, I remember the guidance counselor saying to me, like, is this really a thing? Like, a car salesman? You want to be a car salesman the rest of your life? I vividly remember looking at the guy right between the eyes and saying, yes. There wasn't even a moment's hesitation. I was just, it's just something that I've always thoroughly enjoyed, the whole entire industry. It certainly has its ups and downs. We've come through an absolutely unprecedented time, that's for sure. And now I would say, I think last year we were probably in the shadow of the high consumer demand, the low supply, the unbelievable environment for making money and selling automobiles. And then we probably should be going a little bit slower into this next stage, but I think we're right in it. And some guys are struggling miserably, and it's really quite unfortunate. But at the end of the day, they'll survive it. And of course, there's lots of us out here to help. That's how I got into the business, Ian.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that. So I'm not sure who was on next. I think it was a tie. So we're going to go with Steve first.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for having me on, man. It's fun to be. My podcast, the Stevie Show is fun, but I'm always the one asking questions, so it's kind of fun to be asked. So I appreciate the opportunity. I got in the car business because I just hated high school. So. What do dumb kids do when they get out of high school? They take a roofing job that their mom gets them from the money down the road or whatever. And I spent about a summer and a half roofing, flat tar, like flat rubber roofs, like big projects, Motorola, stuff like that. I think I always liked car salesmen for some reason. And I went to my car went down a break. It was about 155 degrees, what the guy said on the radio. Hey, it's gonna be 155 today. And I said, that's it. Turned the keys, drove down the road, and cut my ponytail off, called my mom and said, I think I need some clothes. And I applied. I was I think I was 18 years old then. I applied at 55 stores and nobody would hire me. And I had a couple of guys tell me I could wash cars. And I got another story for that. I told Joe Flores he could wash my car one day. About 15 years later, as an E-Lead rep, he didn't recognize me, but he washed my demo for me when I was doing an install for those guys. And I told him, I said, hey, I don't know if you remember this, man, but I blew out of there. I said, you'll wash my car one day. I said, I don't know if you remember this. I said, but about 15 years ago at Apple Dodge, or an Apple Toyota, you told me I can wash cars. I went off on you. And he goes, that was you, man? I go, yeah, that was me. I said, I appreciate you washing my demo, brother. Thanks. So I was just too dumb to do anything else, man. And I guess it just worked out for me. So.
Fantastic.
Good
and
for you.
We have the other Steve. We have two Steves on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh,
It's
no
just great
worries.
to be here. So I own a marketing agency specializing for automotive called Dealer Edition, and there's sort of two fundamental parts to it. One is a bolt-on lead generator for dealers so that they can just see maximum growth just right away. And secondly is really a holistic marketing approach for automotive. So that's from branding to positioning, pricing, marketing, advertising, the whole gamut. And so my my angle there was the scenic route. And so it took me a long way to get to the automotive industry. But believe it or not, my very, very first memory in life when I was 2 years old was drawing a pickup truck. And I'll never forget that drawing. I can close my eyes and still do it. And ever since that, my passion for cars has never dwindled. It's just gotten stronger and stronger. And I had one goal as a young person, was to be a famous artist. And so I actually achieved that goal. My paintings are internationally recognized, exhibited around the world. And when I would paint in my studio all day, all I would do was watch car videos all day, day in and day out. And having previously worked in an agency space, I decided, you know what, maybe there's something more there. And then I used to drive an NSX every day to the studio, after NSX. And I sold it, I put 75,000 kilometers on it, and sold it for $35,000 more than I paid for it. And I was like, holy crap, like, this is kind of cool. Like, that's all my work goes that I put into the art. You know, you don't make that kind of return like that. And with selling a car, obviously, there's more to it. But then I had an opportunity to become marketing director for an auto group, a large auto group. And from that, I had the chance to really hone my skills and then really dive full into the automotive marketing agency world that I'm in now. So
fantastic. And last but not least, Mr. Larry, I know there's a story about how you got in the business.
Well, my story is actually very similar to Bill Harvey's. My dream was to grow up to be a serial killer, but the standards were just way too high, so I went to the car business.
Standards were just way
got
too
that out of
high.
my system. Bill got into the love your energy, got into the car business by accident, like a lot of people do. Wound up being number 2 in the country for sales for Cadillac. I'm still angry that I wasn't number 1. Some guy in Texas, they sold 4 times as many cars as we did. Wound up being a partner when we sold it. I made the mistake of doing somebody a favor, never a good idea. With recruiting and training, they were horrible, so I started Career Changers. And that's it. And it's a pleasure to see all you guys.
Fantastic. Thanks, Larry. And I guess I should tell a little bit about my story. I entered the car industry a number of years ago because I loved cars and I wanted to have fun. I worked in a lot of sales jobs over the years and found that a lot of them were pretty freaking dull. I mean, the last sales job I did outside of auto was transportation and logistics. And that was like watching paint dry. Like I just could not. I mean, we used to light up our manager just for kicks. We used to have him quote stuff just to have some laughter in our life because it was just so freaking dull. Like how many cartons of whatever. I mean, it just was ridiculous. So I got into the car business, and ironically, when I went to get a car sales job, the manager says, "Oh, you don't want to work in the car business. Take a week and think about it."
No way.
That's what he said to me. He says, yeah, this is not for you. This is not the job this is not the drone you're looking for, which I thought was hilarious. And me being persistent, I came back and goes, okay, now you got to learn every single car we sell. And I'm like, well, I've driven a Honda. It doesn't matter. You got to learn every single car. And then I'm going to ask you questions. And it was like, what the frick is going on here? Like, I just want a job, dude. Like, what the, it was really, really funny. But, it was definitely not your normal job for sure. And I guess the first thing I learned was perfection was impossible. And once you learn that lesson, it was fine. But initially it was like, yeah, I can deliver the perfect car. No, never going to happen. It doesn't matter the car. It doesn't matter the situation. But you'll learn a lot about it. I mean, I was lucky to have cars in my family, being my grandfather, my father, and my cousin are in the business. But I remember getting in the business. My brother's like, this is a bad idea, dude. You shouldn't do this. It's a bad idea. Don't sell cars. The reputation is bad. It's going to ruin your life. And I thought that was hilarious. But, you know, and I guess what still makes it special for me today is it's not politically correct.
Smoking crack. You know,
well, yeah, he's like, yeah, it's a bad idea. Like, don't do that. Yeah.
It'll ruin your life.
Yeah.
Friends are gonna hate you.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. And of course, who asked me for car help today? My older brother, who was the first one to say it was a bad fucking idea, which is hilarious. And what makes it interesting for me today, fast forward 25 years, is really the people in the business, whether that be the customers or the people that work in the industry. They're just not boring people. And I think the problem with a lot of people today in multiple professions is they're just way too serious. And that's, I think, what the problem with society is today. People just don't have a sense of humor anymore. It's like, well, you know, oh, we can't say that. Why? Like, why can't we say that? Like, it's entertaining. And that's what I always liked when I sold cars. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can't say that's going away a little bit. You can start to say it again. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually, I think it's easier to find than that. I think you're right, Stevie, and you're not wrong by any stretch of the imagination, Ian. There's 5 attitudes that everybody goes through, and the 5 attitudes are really quite easy. Like when you walked into that car dealership to get an automobile job, and the guy says, "Go home, lay down on the bed till this thought passes, okay, and then go on with your life." Like crazy, insane. And the reason being is that when you were excited to get that job, at some point in time, probably on your 3rd delivery of trying to deliver the perfect car, it wasn't perfect. People accepted it. You weren't going to change the service department. You're like, dang, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, but I'm still jacked. I still like it. And then, of course, you stay in it and you get 10 more cars that are way less than anywhere close to perfect. And now you start to get a little bit neutral. You go neutral in your attitude. You're like, okay, maybe that sales manager was right. But you know what? I still like selling cars that are new and they're fresh. And we're meeting lots of people and the promise that we're going to get it right. And of course, if it doesn't get fixed, you fall to overt hostility, the 4th attitude. And then overt hostility, you just freaking had it. You're screaming at people and calling them names. You guys are idiots and we'll never get anything right. And they just let you do it because you just exhaust yourself. And if you don't get back up to interested, a normal state of mind, because you can't stay excited forever because it just wears you out. It's like overt hostility. Then you fall to the lowest level of employee attitude, and that's covert hostility. And that's where that sales manager was. He was in covert hostility. He's like, I hate my job. I hate my life. I hate this place. And you look like a good guy and a smart person. And just go home and lay down and let this thought pass, okay? I'm saving you a life of grief and misery. And so what happened, to your point, Steve, it's not really that bad, but it does exist, Ian. There's a ton of people in covert hostility, right? They're doing the job, half-act. They're throwing daggers in the managers and the owner and the general managers and the VP's back. You know, they're saying to their face, yeah, boss, this is a great idea. As soon as the boss turns his back, they say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever life. And they taint everyone else's attitude. If we could just get everybody up to interested, because there's only 2 places for you to be in life as an employee: interested or covert hostility. And I think we got a lot of people sliding to covert hostility. Every other attitude, excited and neutral or bored, and overt hostility, is exhausting. So they're just steps along the way and you'll fluctuate in and out of them. But there's a lot of people, they're walking around saying, I don't know if this is for me. And it's, you know, the sad part is that individual that is thinking that, they're not voicing it, or if they do, they're talking to other people. They're kind of like a union leader, you know, they're trying to bring people onto their side, usually their company. And it's sad that individual just doesn't leave, just doesn't quit, just doesn't wake up in the morning and go, I've had enough, because they open up an opportunity for the individual that would like to have that opportunity.
There was a guy
selling cars and managing.
I think it was 15 years ago. I think it was an American guy. He got the bright idea of unionizing car salesmen. And I remember calling him going, this is not going to go well, dude.
It's in Montreal. Montreal
Was it?
Airport for unions, and they're closed on Saturdays. Ian,
I was like, really?
It's amazing.
Really? You think the
Yeah,
car
yeah.
salesmen are going to get unionized? Are you kidding?
They're like,
I
I
had
just
that
never
idea
thought.
in 1999 and just realized early on it was a really
Bad idea.
Okay, go ahead.
Bill, I have a thought for you. If you're this interested in covert hostility, maybe your better career would be marriage counseling.
Yeah, ton of them in that. Absolutely. Oh my God.
Oh.
If you want to be a manager back then, you had to have hired at least 3 people: a DWI lawyer, a marriage counselor, and a divorce attorney. You know, that's how you go.
Steve, we wanted guys that when I got in, okay, I went from salesman to owner. The stuff they did, you get arrested for. Now, first of all, they ran your credit first thing, and if you didn't have any bills, they didn't want you. This guy's a drug addict, perfect. You're gonna have to find money for drugs and for his ex-wife. Oh, he's a gambler. Oh, this guy's gonna come in hungry every month. But what's scarier is, and now I'm not kidding, how we've been infantilicized as a planet, not just as a country.
Yeah.
Well, I remember working with a guy. This is a true story. Best used car I ever worked with. He had 5 illegitimate children with 5 different women that he all met on a one-night stand. So they were constantly showing up looking for money. And he'd always sell like 30, 40 used cars a month.
Manager now for Tesla.
Yeah. And he had a drinking problem, not surprisingly. Drinking problem as well.
But we're way too easily offended by everything. I mean, when I got into business, it was real simple. Guys showed up, make money. That's all. It was a business proposition, and let me tell you something. I've always had fun, as I can tell the people on this call have. But it's really hard to have fun when you're looking for a reason to be offended, because there's so many ways to get offended if that's what you're looking to do. I could care less. My name's Larry. My father was smart enough not to name me Lawrence, but I get called Lawrence all the time. I don't care if you call me Stink. Just send me a check and shut up. But everybody's
you don't want to be called Sue, Larry.
No, that would be Johnny Cash. We'll be on to change it later because I'm a rock and roll guy.
You'd be tough.
I can't help to think though that COVID changed it, because the attitudes that I saw before that, and then with the gold rush of car sales and COVID, and then when it all kind of came to a halt, and then the pressures changed from being like fun to like meeting your targets to not meeting your targets to, you know, what the hell are we doing, to layoffs to fear to, you know, I think the attitudes probably changed. And I saw it from my clients and before when I was at the auto group. But funnily enough, like even within the auto group sector, like 2 auto groups that are so different, right? Like I have one client that we just celebrated a 60-year employee anniversary. 60 freaking years, 60 years the guy's been. And then I got another client who they could barely keep 6 months, you know. And even the GMs, the GSMs, the staff, everybody turns over in 6 to 9 months. And it's like, how do you, with that kind of culture, it's just fear. We can't spend money because we're gonna, you know, everything's gonna change. And the other one's growing and future-proofing their dealership, attracting those people, but there's no room to attract any new ones because nobody leaves, right? And so.
Well, go ahead.
One of the stupidest things about this whole deal is that we don't want to spend money to onboard these folks, right? It costs you somewhere between 10 and 40 grand for turnover. So, I mean, if you put 10 grand into a guy, you're saving yourself 20 grand. I mean, you know, it's not that hard to figure this stuff out. Lots of places do. I gave a talk. I don't know if you know who Joe Webb is.
Yep.
Joe Webb.
Yep.
Joe's amazing.
Yep.
Great guy. Phenomenal guy. Him and Bill. Phenomenal company. But they put on the Dealer Knows summer camp every year. So I spoke last year and I spoke this year. I did sales management both times. And I was on my way down. I drove. So I met my soon-to-be wife at summer camp last year. Kept her, moved her to Dallas from Georgia, and you know, here we are. So she had a bunch of stuff in storage. So we took the letter down there. We're going to drive a trailer back, whatever, get some stuff out. So we drove there, stopped at McDonald's. You know, it's an 18-hour drive. Stopped at McDonald's once or twice. Stopped at Chick-fil-A. And the difference between those 2 restaurants, right? Just across the street from each other, right? Doesn't matter what city, doesn't matter where it is, they're across the street from each other. They're hiring from the exact same pool. right? It's the same high schools, it's the same junior college, it's the same whatever. When you go to Chick-fil-A, every time you ask for something, can I get extra mayonnaise, sir? Absolutely, my pleasure, right? Can I actually just get some ketchup for my fries at McDonald's? You have to ask for that now. Just here, so, and just dump it off on your thing and throw it in your car and you're down the road. It's like, what's the difference? Is it chicken or the egg? Is it culture, or is it the fact that they built that culture and the will of those employees to want to work at a better place, right? That they stay on. So it's the same thing we have in the dealerships, right? Like, are we Chick-fil-A? We train people, we put effort into them, we bring them up to the standard, or are we McDonald's and we just don't give one damn because we're the biggest real estate company in the world, right? We don't care about the price.
Steve, it depends on how short-sighted or foresighted they are. If you from the minute I got into my business, I always thought long-term. Now, it's hard to believe because I'm a little crazy and I like to have fun and do weird stuff, but I'm always thinking, how can I push this to that and that to this and this to that?
Yeah.
But remember, our whole society has gone in the direction of impermanence. The way we look at things, our lack of loyalty. Man, in sports, you better be pretty sharp if you're a sports fan to know who's on whose team.
Yeah.
Because guys used to be right. I mean, it was like world shaking in Edmonton when Gretzky went to Los Angeles. Today, these guys changed teams 19 times, and it's very hard. And if you don't have loyalty, if you don't understand who you are and what whose side you're on, where the hell you're going to go? Salespeople learn this from their managers, who learn it from their owners. They're stupid enough not to realize customers are annuities, not annoyances. So, Steve, I had a guy ask me once, Mr. Feldman, I Googled you, look like you're rich. I don't know, rich enough. He says, you got this and this. How'd you get there? I says, I don't want to be bored. He says, I don't get it. I says, no, I didn't get it. That I work with a bunch of idiots. They're out the window all day and complain. I like looking at I'm so old, I wear a watch, looking at my watch and go, wow, it's time to go home. So if we look at everything as an opportunity, okay? If we look at everything as being exciting, all right? If you're excited to do what you're doing, you're going to do it better. Okay, hey, Bill Harvey. Bill was so excited to go to the drugstore to get his antidepressants because he's grappling with being a little bit down. But it's all right, Bill. We're gonna get you all straightened out.
Thanks, Larry. Love that. I think everything starts with an attitude, right?
Absolutely. And an attitude of gratitude.
Attitude of gratitude, positive attitude of serving, attitude of giving. But there's a whole boatload of attitude out there. It's like, why me? Why can't I do better? Why do I always wind up at this?
Bill, the answer is they didn't read my book. In the first chapter of my book, and the full title is Inner War on Demons, How to Avoid Them, How to Live Your Best Life. I quote my father. I thought he said it. It's an old Jewish proverb. Everybody in the graveyard would get up and take every one of your problems. when people give me a bunch of crap about how bad their day is, and I had enough, I go, do me a favor, take a ride down to the pediatric cancer ward and tell me about what kind of problems you're having. Absolutely. If we don't understand how lucky we are just to be alive, to have our fingers and toes, in our case, everybody in this program has a chance to make an opportunity to be better, to have some fun. But it's the only good thing there is the world hasn't changed. You've always had cynics. You've always had people. My favorite quote with that is Einstein. There's two kinds of people in the world: people that think everything is a miracle, and people that think that nothing is a miracle.
Yeah. Well, to quote Einstein, the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest, right? And so when you compound bad attitudes onto bad attitudes, that's what happen. And I like the idea of hire fast, fire faster. And because when people are bad and you know it, you got to get them out. You got to move on, and you got to instill the why into your staff. You can't expect them to care, right? And so when we have empathetic leadership that actually supports people's best interests rather than just the bottom line, then you can attract it and nurture it too, right? And a lot of times it's just there's so much stress and anxiety over the month that we lose sight of the people sometimes too, day to day, and we just think of like certain milestones throughout the month and forget that people are individuals. And I think that it starts with that leadership too, because I see that's the big delta that I see.
Yeah,
well, I mean, Steve, if Einstein was a used car manager, his theory of relativity would have been completely different. He wouldn't have hired any relatives. Because everybody in this call is hired of people with a PhD. You know what I mean? Parent has dealership.
Unbelievable. So after all this, I mean, what does WTF mean to you in 2024? Go ahead, whoever wants to start.
I'll say something there. So
Yeah.
for me, it's actually pretty simple. It's like I have this tool that allows me to look at any online ad that any business runs. So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Google, you name it. And I'm always auditing dealerships, and it never amazes me how much garbage is being run and how many dealers just don't care about their advertising, or they don't know what they're doing. They just run the same garbage over and over and over and over again. And so that's to me, like, you want better results, like start with that. Like, you're paying money for that. And I see the whole advertising world is like same as a stockbroker day trades stocks. It's about day trading attention. And so find the most value and the most return for your ad spend. And I see so many dealers just getting generic ads, generic results, and just expecting change and growth in a down market where back in the day, it would have worked because you didn't even need to do ads basically a couple of years ago.
So do you feel?
Steve, if the dealers looked at their own website, they'd all have to call suicide prevention.
Well, something I've picked up on over the last few years is that there's so much fried ice cream, right? Like some of these digital marketers, and there are really talented digital marketers out there. So I am in no way discrediting what it is. But I had a buddy of mine that went to work for a company, and I've known this guy 20 years, and he is a hammer, right? I mean, he's been everywhere, national sales trainer, just stud of a guy. And the company he was working for sold out, so he went to work for, took a year off, then went to work for these guys, whatever. And I called him, I said, hey, what are you doing over there, man? What's the thing? Da, 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 da. I said, how is it? He said, shit, my pay plan. It's amazing. And I said, well, that's awesome. I said, how's the program? He goes, oh, no, bro, you can't buy this shit. He said, no, I'm going to tell you this, bro. He said, it doesn't do anything. I mean, and it's like, it's like the fact that the dealers just don't understand what's going on. And either they're aged out, or they text too fast, or they just too rich to pay attention, or, no interest, whatever the case may be. You got guys paying these somebody spenders $3, $4, $5, $6, $8, $10, $15,000 a month for, Google ads that, you can just have your little brother place on your Google My Business page, and it's like, so it's interesting, man. And I'm in the compliance space. I moved in to work for ADCO, AFIP. Some of you guys have been around a long time.
Yeah.
So AFIP's our parent company, but we're a nonprofit. So we formulated two other companies. ADCO is the Association of Dealership Compliance Officers. And so we just pouring into that other side of it over the last few months, man, really just digging my teeth into it. It's just a really interesting space in the business because it's, it's nerding out. It ain't gonna say another car, all that kind of thing, just sell one more car, man, and pay for itself, blah, blah, blah. Like, but we're on that side of data where we look at it and you go, hey, look, if you sell your stuff at a fair price, you sell more of it, you retain it longer, less cancellations. Like, you start looking at the real math on it. It's the same stuff that the dealers don't want to hear either, right? They don't, this is an expense. Like, well, maybe, but if you have trained, compliant people in this app, they know the rules, they know red flags, they know safeguards, they know these things, they stay longer, they cause you less problems. Like, turns out it's just a math problem that you just haven't looked at, So it's really fun to be in this space. I work for an amazing company. So these guys are like truly family. It's amazing.
Steve, did you say AFib?
Yeah.
Oh, because in the States, it's clearly known that if Joe Biden goes into AFib, Secret Service is going to shoot him up the house.
He's got a DNR according to Joe Biden. Joe Biden in AFib? Did you know that? I don't know if this is true. I saw this. I mean, it's on the internet, right? So it's got to be true. But that whatever it means, that Joe Biden babysat the younger Biden kids when they were 15 years old. It's a very strange phenomenon.
Shocking to believe that a man with his integrity would date the babysit. Next thing you're going to tell me, fish are swimming and birds are flying.
We just made this a political conversation right off the bat. Sorry to hear that.
Well, it is WTF, and you do have Larry Feldman.
There you go. And that's why we have disclaimers on the show. Absolutely. So Bill, what do you think? I mean, obviously there's a lot of change going on. I know that there's sort of the on the political side, there's all this electric car stuff. And I actually just read an article on the weekend that there's so many Teslas unsold on the ground, you can see them from space. But, you know, at the end of the day, I guess the big question is, what's coming next? Like, what's going to be the next twist? What do you think?
Hey, I don't think we're done with digital media yet. As much as so many dealers and retailers and dealer groups have their media and advertising companies within the organization that are just hiring out to guys like Steve to have an agency do it correctly. I really believe that, number one, the salespeople themselves are going to wake up and figure out how to organically create a presence that won't sap them of all their time. They'll realize the technology that is available at their fingertips to get more done in 4 hours than the average guy does in a day, week, month, and some never ever, or even just a year. And then the second part of that equation is creating, and Steve Bayless, you can speak probably more eloquently to this than I could, is it's one thing just to put it out there. So Jenna Kuchar did a fantastic job with the moniker, done is better than perfection. But I think we're past that now. So many people are seeing so much, and there is a genuine interest in the digital space, and I'm specifically making reference to TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, that we want to see better. Done is not just enough anymore. And the better part of the component is going to be a branding version. Now, I don't like going down the branding path because I'm not suggesting for a second, and I don't think anybody can brand them unless they're Ian. You can, Ian, as you have Gil Rubenstein, and things great, done a great job of it. Anthony Robbins, definitely. Certainly ClickFunnels. Oh, somebody help me here.
Alex Ramosi?
Who's the ClickFunnels guy? Sorry.
Oh, I don't know who the ClickFunnels guy. Russell
I just know
Brunson?
the rap song.
Yeah. Jeez, I don't think I know it, Steve.
Oh, you gotta listen up.
You're singing.
No, I can't do that. I don't know what that about.
So I think there's a lot to be done there. We've shifted gears in our little organization from chasing the big corporate clients and the large dealer groups that formed a corporate contract to the individual dealer, and specifically the high performers who are struggling along with, I used to be a 15, 20, 25, 30 car a month guy. And here I am grinding it out and killing myself down in the 12 and the 15 car, and I'm third or fourth on the list. And it's largely because that 90-day wonder has come in and recognized the power of social media. And I like to take the social off of it. It's just media. I see a lot of dealers following the analog media philosophy, create an ad and throw it out there and just let it run. We're running 2 ads right now, just about to add a third, and that's way down from our average 20. But what we're doing is the same message, just changing the graphics so frequently and monitoring and really seeing what works. And the interesting thing is, this is blowing me away because I didn't do any product training for Dodge, but did a lot of product training for Mercedes-Benz and General Motors. And the picture, the image that does the very best was one that I snapped at the Toronto International Auto Show of the electric Dodge Ram truck. And I keep telling my ad guy, like, you better take that off of there because electric isn't really top of mind like it was 2 years ago. And he goes, Bill, here are the stats. It's unbelievably impressions that we get on that. He said, I take it off. I do what you say. I take it off. I put on one of your other images, or we do a very brief reel. It doesn't do nearly as well as that one static image. And then, and obviously we're getting traction with it. So and we're getting in industry people. So I'm business to business, obviously, as all of us are in the room. And I thought it was business to consumer. I thought consumers were clicking on it. So it's hard to say what is going to work, but I definitely think that the year going forward and into 2025, just the economy alone will stimulate that kind of research and development for all retailers and the salesperson that wants to be top of the leaderboard as well. And it can be very inexpensive to do. That's my 2 cents.
Interesting. Pal. What about on the compliance side? I mean, you were talking about compliance. I know it's a big thing in the U.S. There's probably fear of lawyers and more than anything else. But as I've been doing a project with Ford Direct, there seems to be a lot of concern about data and what dealers are doing with that data. I know it's not a new conversation, but are dealers saying, hey, now I'm suddenly interested, or are they still asleep at the wheel there? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, look, as far as data goes, I think everybody's pretty hopped up on goofballs about the safe cars rule, right? Because that's now it's been in effect, so everybody's kind of jammed up on that. So we're a reactive business, but I think Larry, we were talking about this just the other day. We have a 30-day disease, right? We have a 30-day disease in this business. So we're reactive. We're not proactive. We don't think about the future. We're not worried about the future. We're worried about today. How many appointments you got? How many phone calls you make? Give me a break, man. Just give me a break. Let's figure out a better way. But either way, as far as all the data stuff goes, it seems like people are pretty secure on that. But where the problems are coming and where the fear is right now is, cars rule, right? What's going to happen with cars rule? And so it looks like, from whatever inside baseball we have, which is very little, but talking with the actual attorneys that really do these things and look at these things and kind of diving ourselves into this so that we can be ahead of the game. It looks like most of it's going to go. So, for guys in Florida, good luck. You got to learn how to sell cars. No more $3,900 dock fees and whatever else. But you walk into a dealership in Florida, you got a $150 payment. You ain't picked out a car yet. So. That is fine.
Hey, Steve, it's a lot of this. Listen, I've been training now. I trained all my guys when I owned my store, but I've been training guys now for 12 years. And, I think we all hear so much BS and so much of what is said in life and certainly in the car business is completely counterintuitive to what's really done. Or empower your sales force. No, explain to your sales force that they're running their business within somebody else's with no debt service. I tell guys that every time I train them or if I'm pumping them back up, listen, if I came to you and said, I'll put up $7 million, we'll go into business and we'll split the property. Every damn one of you would say, when do I start? You're in that position. They got the building, the cars. They're not asking you to pay the floor plan. They've got to think of it as their own business. Bill's right. You're right. The other Steve's right. But you know it's going to come down to is what it always came down to. Prospecting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Finding business out there because everybody hates car salespeople, but your family and friends and the people you went to school and synagogue and church and played ball with, they don't hate you, they love you. Right. I always tell salespeople, do you think you're a nice guy? Yeah. Well, do you realize there's some creeps out there? Yeah. Well, then you understand that if you don't earn their business, one of these creeps might get them. That means they deserve to have you as their salesperson. You deserve to have them as your customer.
Yeah.
Try to find that damn mentality. Bill, I got into a store, I'm not bragging, okay, that they signed recourse. In other words, they had a local bank, and as long as a guy or lady lived somewhere 10 years, they didn't care if the credit was 200, they co-signed. Of course, every deal was 10 grand. So guys quit as managers to work as salesmen. The first full month I was there, I was top salesman. After 4 years, they retired. Why? I was out there getting business. They got cocky.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't, again, quote my own book. If you want to get rich, act like you're broke. If you want to go broke, act like you're rich. I mean, I still laugh to this day. I tell people, what do car salesmen talk about all day? It's not sex. It's not sports. It's that there's no business. And then a car pulls up and they go, you want to take a guy? He's probably not a buyer. Send the wrong.
Yeah, that's 100%.
But the mentality is the same mentality it's always been. Guys that are like on this call, that want to make a living, that want to be out there, are going to be out there. And the guys that don't. Okay, the reason I'm wearing my hat, my funny shirt is I just got playing tennis. I rushed home because I don't want to let Ian down because like everybody on this call, I do what I say I'm going to do, and I like to be counted on. In the meantime, I put 75 LinkedIn invitations out. And I got a couple bucks. Okay, I could retire when I sold my store. But I always act like I'm broke. And if you get salesmen, they can't wait to talk to somebody and can't wait to say, hey, here's what I do, here's how I do it. You can't go wrong. And that won't change. And as far as the social media end, we have let Steve Jobs and his cohorts turn this country and this world into a bunch of subhuman morons. They don't know how to spell. They don't know how to add and subtract. They don't know how to make eye contact. right? You guys all saw the same social media post I did. You know, the mistakes that people make when they go on jobs. They don't turn on the video on a Zoom call. They bring their parents with them. They can't make eye contact. What planet are we on? Salesmen are supposed to ask you. They're supposed to listen more than they talk. They're supposed to show, like, Bill, you've probably done this 1,000 times. I do it every day. I love to say to people, what do you say when somebody says, I only have 10 minutes, got to go watch my son play ball? I love it when they say, I can do it in 10 minutes. Only if you're a hooker at a casino. You're not selling a guy a car in 10 minutes. The answer is, what does your son play? Now you have a conversation about what's important to them.
Yeah.
So this is the ultimate get back to the basics. In a world, listen, I am singularly the dumbest guy in terms of technical stuff on this call. I'm the dumbest guy on every technical call. My iPhone has a rotary dial. Okay, we got John Kostakis on tape saying he worked with Grant Cardone and Damian Boudreaux. He never met anybody that made contact with people the way I did. Why? Because I had so much fun with Steve on my lethal sales show. I got a feeling you and me are going to be buddies.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. So if that's your attitude, if you can't wait to talk and get excited and have fun, and you think, I wonder what's going to happen next, it's great. So we just kind of have to relight the flame and take people back to basics, and we'll be okay. You know, the world has to do some kind of changing because we're hanging off a cliff right now, and it's not political. It's just common sense. The direction that everything's heading in is not a good direction. You know, you can't spend more money in my country, in your country. Canada's the biggest debtor nation there is, and we owe trillions of dollars. By the way, Steve, I know you were concerned. A guy stole my wife's credit cards, but I didn't report it. He's spending less than she is. I'm actually pissed with that.
So thank you, though, right? You're saving me $5,000 a month. I appreciate you. Yeah.
Hey, Bill, trust me. Ian never calls me on tech shows, but the WTF call, I was his first call.
Yeah, I mean, we do have shows on tech, and it's always interesting because sometimes technical people are dry. That's not always the case. We did actually have a gentleman, I think from Carnell, on a show a while ago, and his dad was a preacher, and he's a hell of a speaker, very different from your typical technical person. But the thing that's interesting today, and I think Larry hit it on the head, is you need to make the industry fun for a couple of reasons. A, you have to get the younger generation interested in fun, because I think in some cases they're not as much as they could be. But also, you've got to empower them to have fun. I mean, I think that's the part of it isn't their fault. Part of it is, you got to stick within these guardrails. And I think that's a lot of big businesses have that issue, you know, whether it's a bank or insurance company or whatever. I don't think the car business has those guardrails within reason, but I don't think people know about it. I mean, it's funny when you talk about technicians, and there was someone who commented that Gen Z is starting to look at blue collar jobs because there's opportunity. But I would say that that's part of the problem too, is that a lot of people don't even consider the car business. They go, what there's jobs in that business? Yeah, it's a big employer. And the thing that's funny is that's just not, it's not like the high school career counselor is saying, yep, yeah, you should enter the car business.
Yeah, why would you want to go into a field where there's no cap on what you can make? And if you happen to be talented, you can move up through the ranks.
And you don't need 25 years to build that book of business to make 250. You know, I mean,
and you can make Instagram, TikTok videos all day too. So
all day. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a recruiting problem, and that goes back to kind of what we were talking about with this Chick-fil-A, whatever thing, right? Like, why are we not recruiting the better people in this business? And I think there's a turn and a change in some of that, right? Like, if you go to Joe Webb's place, if you go to SodaCon, if you go to, some of these places that are really sort of churning out these fresh ideas about how do we get better talent in the business and sort of save it, if you want to call it that, right? Because I feel like if we don't do something different, the life as we know it's going to sort of disappear. I'm sure y'all.
Hey, Ian, he's the third guy that mentioned Chick-fil-A. Maybe next show we should order some pizzas or something. These guys are bringing a whole new meaning to being hungry.
Hey, listen, I'm going to open a food truck and put it next to every single Chick-fil-A, and I'm going to just name it Side Chick. All we're going to sell is chicken biscuits. That's it, brother.
Well, Chick-fil-A was the company that had some opinions, and then it grew their business. I mean, it was interesting. I watched a YouTube on the weekend. It was about 3 restaurant chains that almost went out of business in the U.S. I think it was Chuck E. Cheese, TGI Fridays and Subway. It was interesting to hear the story about sort of the up and down of their business. Oh, understood. But it was interesting to hear the ups and downs of that business. And I think when you see retail in general today and malls and stuff, I mean, the reason those businesses are failing, in my opinion, is that, that there isn't any excitement. I mean, when's the last time you went into a retail location and people were actually excited to work there? Like, they're just not. And I think that's a risk in the car business. We've got to really get passionate people who want to help people, right? And the reason the restaurant business is so topical is the restaurant business needs the same thing. You need someone who actually wants to be of service and wants to make it fun. And I'm not picking TGIF as an example there, even though it started as a singles bar, which I had no idea, which was kind of funny. But
the concept is, I always get a laugh because I'm Jewish when I explain that the greatest used car manager of all time would have been Jesus, because he invented servant management. He washed the feet of the disciples. But we're now in a space on our planet where everybody's like, what are you going to do for me? Every good salesman, every intuitive salesman knows the more you do for other people, the more you get back anyway, whether it's altruistic motives or not.
Giving hand gathers.
Yep.
Have you guys heard, do you know who Ryan Leslie is?
Sounds familiar. Not sure.
He's with Four Eyes.
Okay, yeah. We've had the CEO of Four Eyes on before. Yep.
So I'll tell you what, if you want to have a great show, get a hold of Ryan Leslie. I don't know what his title is over there.
So see, he just implied that this is not a great show. You should have had food.
I heard I should have had Chick-fil-A or maybe Subway.
So he tells, and I'm not going to tell the story for it, but his son was affected with childhood cancer, and
right,
things weren't great. But people don't realize, and we were talking about branding here or whatever, and I think where sort of the future of this could go is like Hyundai's got a program, Hyundai Hope on Wheels. Right?
Yeah.
It is a giant foundation that gives out just bukus of money and helps so many families. I mean, like on the most intimate and personal levels, like they do the best, craziest good work you've ever seen in your life, right? And nobody's ever heard of it. Like if you go to their LinkedIn page, you go to their page, there's like, 200 followers or something crazy. And it's like, Hyundai's doing this incredible work. And they're not talking about it, which is admirable, right? I mean, there's love for that, but it's also not building the thing they could do. But I think there's just a ton of like dealership and then even personal branding availability, like through media, social media, whatever you want to call it, to earn that book of business. If you're the charitable dealer of the city, and it's a thing that you actually care about, maybe you make your conference room available for small nonprofits to meet at on Sundays, or new churches or Boy Scout troops or like whatever. You start branding that over time. I've been talking to dealers about this forever, even if it was a 5-year play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your grandfather owned the store, your father owned the store, you own the store, your son's going to own the store, whatever. I mean, you got 5 years to play a game, right? I mean, you got 5 years to do it, and you start turning these things out, and all of a sudden, like maybe people don't hate you. And maybe that advertising doesn't have to be, I'm the cheapest in town. Like, matter of fact, I'm one of the more expensive ones in town because we provide and there's a goodness to that, and by the way, we'll still give you a car deal, whatever. So I think that's really could be the future of how these things could shift. If you get a hold of Ryan Leslie, man, I'd look him up. He'll tell you the story online. Bro, 400 grown men just crying at lunch. So I mean, it's the most amazing story you ever heard in your life. So
I was a Cadillac Hyundai dealer, and I went down to University of Pennsylvania. It was when they had the Santa Fe with all the kids. You're right. It's so emotionally affecting because we get so caught up in our day-to-day world of grinding it out. We don't realize the effect we can have on people. A smile, a kind word, just thinking about somebody else other than ourselves. But again, that flows from the top down. Bill, you're new. I met you before, so I tell this story all the time. Forgive me, but it's just apropos. I got scarred for life in a good way. It was my first week on the job. The GM was leaving the store, and the operator said, "Boss, you have a call." He said, "Tell him I left." And I thought he's a moron. If it's somebody that wants to buy a 2 cars, go buy them somewhere else. If it's somebody with a small problem and you solve it, they love you. Meantime, it simmers overnight. Now they want to kill you. None of this is complicated.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you look at a brand like Subaru; they do that giving thing every year. I mean, glove or whatever,
Right.
but it's not
Well,
a big thing, but it's interesting, right? Yeah.
Right.
And you just have to piggyback on it. That's the beauty of it. It's already invented. Just like Larry said, here's $7 million. Partner with me on this business opportunity. I'll provide the phone, the office, the administrative staff. I'll look after the taxes and make sure that the tax department gets paid. I'll get the car all cleaned up for you. All you need to do is sell it and piggyback on the charity that has already been created. The one thing that I believe a lot of individuals don't act on is that they just don't know what to do. And yet there's so many of these opportunities on a silver platter. I don't think we have to expect them to do them all. Just pick up the one and that charity hits a home run. But then it could be the Corvette Rally and it could be the Jeep Jamboree. And that's where the fun comes in.
Ian,
since we put too much emphasis on is let's have fun. Let's just go.
Well, since it's the WTF show, Ian, is it okay if I tell my preacher story?
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm selling Cadillacs.
I know he didn't have good credit. I know that.
I was Trent, New Jersey, who lost the 700 scores. She was 4, he was 3, and we used to glue them together. They were a little looser back then. This preacher comes in. He's wearing a white hat, a white 3-piece suit, white socks, white shoes. He's got a walking cane, and he's got his entourage. And I guess his mission was to torture the car salespeople. So I come in and I said, "Hi, Standard. Welcome to Colonial Cadillac. I'm Larry Feldman." I started to hand him a card and ask your name, and he puts a hand out and goes, "I don't want to necessarily shake hands with a car salesman. You have unsavory reputations." Well, he was screwing around with the wrong Jew. I said, "That's interesting, Reverend, because I believe Jesus said you have to take the plank out of your eye before you take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. Judge not, lest you be judged." Now his whole entourage are high-fiving. He knows the Bible, Rev. Let me tell you how hard I hit him. I think he's still paying back for that car, and I sold the dealership 12 years ago. I wound up preaching in his church, okay? I stood up. I guess he wanted me to say nonsense. Instead, I said, "Who's tired of getting ripped off by white car salespeople?" Every hand went up. They were jumping. I said, "Wait a minute. That's because they lied to you. I'm going to make a couple bucks, but I'm going to take care of you. Isn't that right, Rev?" What else could he say? But yeah, I had fun. I was straightforward and I had fun. If you're not going to have fun, listen, Steve, both Steves, you go home, I'm assuming you're married, whatever, and you had a rotten day, and your wife says, "What's wrong?" You say the same thing I say, "Nothing." How do they know there's something wrong? Is there a neon sign over your head, Steve's? No, it's all over your face. Don't you think customers see when we're not happy and we're not excited? Of course. This all comes back to being lights, camera, action all the time.
Well, Larry, you made a really good point there about that story because you were being relatable. I think that's the big thing. You humanized yourself and you're being relatable. And sometimes it's just about turning the camera and the light on to those parts of us that make us human, and adding value to the person rather than trying to sell, right? And so you should be adding value, and then getting the sale, right? Not just buy. And so it's taking a different approach with your content. And also really starting to build out those pillars. So like community engagement could be a pillar. It doesn't have to be the only thing, but then you can build on that. People can get to know you, know the good, and it's you're doing it anyways. So why not like get the equity out of that too? And then to the point about having staff build their own brand, I think that's the future of automotive sales because those ones are going to continue to get bigger returns on that investment. And what dealerships are doing totally wrong though is that they're letting these guys do it on their own, and they're quite often they're funding themselves, and then they leave and they just go from place to place. Whereas what we used to do is I would build them for the person, and we would fund them, and they would get that incentive. And in doing so, the auto group owned the property, and so there was they got known as this reputation as this person. Well, that brand name is now with the company. And so if they want to leave, go for it, but you can't bring that property with you. And by doing that, you're investing in your staff too. And everybody around them sees that success and they want a piece of that. And what happens is like moth to a flame, right? They all start to get on board. And that seems to be the trick.
And we're out of time, but thanks everybody. It was a great show. And obviously have yourself a great week.
Thank you guys. It was great.
Thanks.
Thanks for the chat, guys.
Yep. Thanks.